Hello, everybody. My name is Dalton Moore, and I'm going to ask you guys a quick question to get things started off real nice and easy here. All right, how many of you know Iron Man? I'm just going to take a quick guess here and say most of you probably do. So, anyway, the whole point of this speech is going to be going over how we can make connections in movies with God and how we can use these network connections of how God leads people back to His grace. So, with this, I'm going to talk about how the Iron Man story allows us to see God's will transform a person and lead the person back to Him. So, this will cover how Iron Man's story and how his story arc shows a cruel man in the beginning, an egotistical person, and how he undergoes the transformation, and then finally how he becomes a savior in the end to save his friends. So, at the beginning, with how the Iron Man movies show a cruel, egotistical person, at the beginning, I'm going to start off with a couple quotes and then go into a further explanation. So, in 2019, he wrote about how the Iron Man franchise and story introduces audience with the redemption arc of Tony and how he indulges in a reckless, high glamour lifestyle and how he dodges the real world implications of his weapon manufacturing. And then in Bremer 2008 describes Tony Stark with his stories offer complex themes of psychological scars and how and atonement and how Tony Stark has to deal with inner demons that he is fighting. So this talks about how in the beginning how as you can see he is a very egotistical and cruel dark person and how he has to undergo transformation because he is a very sinful man, and this is shown in movies all about. So now we're going to begin on what exactly is the transformation that he undergoes and how it happens and what exactly happened. So moving on to how the Iron Man story shows a person undergoing a transformation. In Jones 2016 describes the event as the Iron Man to choose his life. Tony Stark is attacked by terrorists bearing weapons imprinted with his own name, and one of the eruption of these weapons causes an explosion and puts shrapnel near his heart and pierces him. Tony is saved by the kindness of a stranger, and the stranger puts a machine in his chest that saves his life, but it makes him dependent on electricity in order to survive and keep the slivers of the shrapnel away from piercing his heart fully and killing him. And in Romanowski 2003 puts to light a transformation, any transformation, as a fundamental and universal spiritual opposition between the dominion of God and the dominion of Satan. So this whole thing of Tony being a weapon manufacturer and making a biblical reference to Jericho 2, he goes about melting away a mountain per se, and how this weapons manufacturing in this show of display is ultimately what leads him to his transformation by being this manufacturer of mass destruction. It backfires on him, and he is faced with his own deal of karma undergoing this transformation. So finally moving on to how this transformation of him dedicating his life after seeing and experiencing near death with this explosion to committing to a greater good. You can see how the Iron Man movies show Tony Stark, this person, becoming a savior to his friends by ultimately laying down his life in the end of the movie. So in Tan 2019 said that Tony's new loved ones not only raise his stakes, but are also a compelling conviction to how his dedication to change for the greater good. And Schultz in 2000 shows his thoughts on how each of us lives in a particular place and time. We cannot redeem the world overnight, but we can invite others to join us along the way. So with this, you can see in Civil War and Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers Endgame, and Infinity War, you can see that it's a mass collection of people. It's this group that ultimately change the world. It's not a single man, but it's a group of people who have their minds set for the greater good that will ultimately change and disrupt this way of current living to make it better. So in conclusion, we can see how how this is a transformation and how we can see God transforming a person back towards his grace, particularly in the Iron Man story. In the Iron Man movie, show the transformation of Tony Stark from an egotistical being into a very good person that ultimately ends up saving his friends. So if this is the story of Iron Man and how the clincher and how everything is going to happen, do you think God could be able to do this for you?
You doing this